everybody, and very welcome to the 22nd episode of our discussions on the brain function series from the Togetherness Media, Los Angeles. Mohammad Nami here. I'm a medical doctor and cognitive neuroscientist. I'm the director of the Brain Cognition Behavior Unit at the Department of Neuroscience at Shiraz University of Medical Sciences. And I really thank you for following up with this series of discussions on the brain, whereby we've had a chance of just discussing some of the facts and frontiers around how the brain works and how the brain function really matters in our productivity, our mental health, and knowing about this kind of dynamics is going to help us and the whole world around us to be in a better position for well-being and functionality and productivity. Recently, we decided together to touch on a key concept within the whole arena of neuroscience discussions, and that was the neuroplasticity, the brain plasticity. And we kind of allocated the last 3-4 episodes to this specific key topic. And today, hopefully, we're going to conclude on this, and then we'll move to the key concept and how applied neuroscience advances and also new frontiers in neuroscience are going to help the people at personal and societal level. So when we discuss about the potential of the brain cells to get rewired and to get optimized in terms of forming new circuitries and also new networks, and the way that the networks are kind of collaborating and they're having like an interaction, when we referred that to as the network of networks within the brain, how this is going to modulate the way that we're learning stuff, we forget about the stuff, or unlearn stuff, if you will, and then we relearn things. So learning, unlearning, and relearning, and this is pretty much the basis of the neuroplasticity. And the neuroplasticity, as we kind of agreed earlier, refers to the idea that the brain is not necessarily, and entirely hardwired with the fixed neuronal circuits all throughout our life. So of course we have the hard wiring, but this is not well fixed in place. It can be modulated, it can be changed, and whenever we're learning new skills, whenever we're getting ourselves familiar with the new cognitive concepts, learning new stuff and something of that sort, then the brain is going to kind of modulate and reform the way that it is structured from one side, and also the electrical, magnetic interaction between the neural spaces, and extracellular neural dynamics will be changed. And this is kind of rooting in the chemical dynamics within the synaptic space. You know that we have a wide range of proteins and chemicals that they are there in the synaptic space. Part of that is the neural transmitter system, but it's not only the neural transmitters, but also some other chemicals which come into play, and they're modulating, regulating the inflammatory or anti-inflammatory dynamics within and around the neural cells, right? So that's what we are discussing in the context of neuroplasticity. One of the key pillars of neuroplasticity is neurogenesis. Neurogenesis, basis is on the fact that we already have thought that, well, there are only very, very few areas in the brain that they're responsible for carrying the capacity of having new progenitor or stem cells, and neural stem cells, if you like. But nowadays, based on the evolving evidence that we have in the cellular and molecular neuroscience and also translational neuroscience, we know that apart from the olfactory bulb and also the dentate gyrus of the hippocampus, which is seating in the temporal and the lateral cortices of the brain, apart from these two areas, we know some other areas that they retain the capacity of having the progenitor cells, like neural stem cells, including the cerebellum. So by this, new insight, new question will form. And we kind of wonder if someone keeps training and keeps on learning new stuff, is that the way that these areas are going to generate new neural stem cells, or or the process of differentiation of those cells will be kind of modulated, and we have the whole neurocapacity formed or optimized. And these are the things that we just experience, right? So we experience, we get the skill, and based on that, we learn. And when we learn something and we apply that kind of learning, then we're going to experience and re-experience. And we know that this influences the synaptic organizations of the brain. And also, this is considered as the basis for the number of theories of the brain function, including the general theory of mind and neural Darwinism. So this is kind of, captivating stuff. So we have this neural Darwinism theory that talks about the fact that we are not the victim of the hard wiring and the genetically defined structure in the brain. We can get them changed. We can get them modulated. We can restructure, sculpture our brain, if you like. And by this, many of the instances, people are gaining new stuff, or they keep on doing or kind of following in a specific behavior, or refraining from doing some other behaviors through classical conditioning. So classical conditioning is based on how the brain is going to set itself up for like the energy conservation, and the way that's going to just make as less effort as possible to carry out a task. So by this, the brain will learn the streamlines, how to do this stuff, how to take care of the task with the lowest energy expenditures possible. And this is how the brain learns how to be more productive. And that's all about the productivity, if you would agree. We are using less energy, but better outcome. And that's the way that the brain puts together the capacity of forming or unforming connections. And this happens throughout our life, specifically in our, when we're a young kid. So in the adolescence and in the young childhood years, we kind of develop new skills, and our brain is just experiencing and re-experiencing new stuff. And by that, the brain is going to formulate new capacities. For instance, when we're a young kid, we do not necessarily have this binocular or depth vision or 3D vision. So by that, we sometimes make errors in estimating the depth or the distance. And because of that, we fall off. We do not have this motor aptitude as we expect to. But by time, we're going to learn how to harmonize the visual system with the vestibular system, with the cerebellum and the deep brain nuclei. So by that, we just put them all together in this system of systems. Would provide us with the great capacity of doing the things in a way which is an uncompromising capacity of doing the things in the right way. So the basis of neuroplasticity is the way that we keep using a specific structure or circuitries in the brain. So by that, the calcium channels, the secretion and the production of some of the specific chemicals like glutamate or choline within the synaptic space is going to help us to retain new skills and to stick to them. So by time, we're going to still have those capacities. And we kind of discussed about some examples and how this would happen in the brain by time, and how is it practically difficult to just unlearn something. So when we learn something, it is kind of difficult to change that habit. And for those who know about the concept of phantom limb phenomenon, we discussed about the scenario that a person has lost a limb, but still there is like an imaginary limb there, and the cortical circuitries in the brain still process or sometimes over process the stimuli of the organ which has already been amputated. So there is no actual organ there, but the brain still processes or reprocesses data. And that's why the people with phantom limb pain, they complain about the excruciating pain, the sensation of the pain from the hand, which is not already there. So that's because we have had the process of neuroplasticity. We still have those structures there, but although we do not have the source of the stimuli, but the brain keeps on processing that kind of thing. And that's interesting. And that holds true for other phenomena like chronic pain, if you would agree. So when we have a chronic state of pain because of an organic source, of course, when we have the pain or inflammation, excruciation, or tissue damage or whatever that we have in the peripheral tissues, the brain will get this untoward signals from the spinal cord all the way up to the brain, and then the processes which happens within the cortex would just formulates and translates this neurochemical signals and neuroelectrical signals into the subjective feeling of pain. But when this goes on and on, then this pain perception network in the brain is going to be supercharged or well structured in place. And by that, when there is no source of pain like before, or there are still some organic sources of pain, but they are not as intense as they used to be, still the person is going to overprocess this pain. So some of the scenarios, pain does not have this organic external sources, and that's the brain which overprocesses the pain. And this is referred to as centralized pain, which is the common scenario when we just do all the different measures to get rid of that pain with the medical intervention, but that does not do the trick because the subject centrally processes and overprocesses the pain signals in the cortex, not necessarily coming from the peripheral organs. Okay. And the other example, a relevant one, could be the impact and the influence of meditation on the brain. So when we meditate, when we have this mindfulness-based cognitive practices, muscle relaxation, and all the different remedies and behavioral practices that we go through when we're using the meditation exercises, then the brain learns how to put the body and also the body, brain, the scores on ease. So by time the brain will have the chance of excreting less cortisol and inflammatory mediators in the face of a stressful situation. So it turns out that those who are regularly going through meditative practices, they turn out to have a better thickness in some specific cortical structures and cortical hubs in the brain. And this is for like mental exercise, if you like. But for the physical exercise, that also holds true because we have plenty of evidence showing that for the people who are well into the fitness and exercises, they have the brain structure capacity that is getting greatly improved in the gray matter volume. And that happens in response to the aerobic exercise predominantly. And some areas of the brain are dramatically responding to the phenomenon of physical exercise, because that all refers to the enhancement and improvement of the microcirculation, not only in the body or the cerebral or the spinal cord, but also in the brain. And not only the cortical areas of the brain, but also the subcortical structures. And evidence has postulated that the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, they show significant improvement in their interstructure connectivity, and also they show to have improved or enhanced volume. And also it has been shown that when someone is engaged in regular exercise, that person might have the capacity of showing moderate improvements in the volume of some areas of the brain, including the anterior cingulate cortex, the parietal cortices, the cerebellum, a deep-seated nucleus in the brain called the caudate nucleus, and the nucleus accumbens, which is an area in the limbic system that corresponds to as a relay station for the sense of pleasure. So you see, these are the things that they are really happening. And it's not what I believe or you believe or what I or you speculate, but that is all about the evidence-based medicine. This has been shown with the imaging studies, with the studies in the functional, cognitive, and behavioral capacity measures in the people who are engaged in such kind of activities. And basically, they have been also shown to be very, very solid and backed up by evidence in the animal models. And some other examples that I'm just going to enlist them here, and then we can conclude to move towards further discussions on the applications of neuroscience for betterment of the people and the society later on, are still regarding some examples of neuroplasticity. Imagine that we use the concept of neuroplasticity to empower and to treat or to improve the deafness. And some people have loss of hearing, or they have like decreased hearing acuity, acoustic acuity. And by that, when it's found out that the people are suffering from the sensory neural hearing loss, then one of the modalities to be employed here is the cochlear implantation. So we implant the cochlea, but still it's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of the journey, because the person is going to use the whole new system in the acoustic organ and also the auditory cortex to just rewire and to foster this specific new ways of communication in the brain to get that improved. So we are using neurofunctional rehabilitation strategies for the improvement of the hearing loss. And also that holds true for the blindness. So the people who have cortical blindness, or they have issues with the retina, with the retinofugal pathways, they have issues with the whole visual pathway all the way back to the visual cortex, we can use neurovisual rehabilitation therapy, or NVRT, using modalities including medications, nootropics, and also applying some kind of neuromodulation means and measures, including stimulation of the brain using the transcranial electrical stimulation, transcranial repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, all the way up to stimulating the brain with the biophotonic modulation or ultrasound stimulation of the brain. Maybe deep-seated subcortical structures of the brain can get a stimulating using the ultrasound. And recently, we have a pile of evidence showing that application of the pulse electromagnetic field therapy can also enhance the capacity of the microcirculation and the neural dynamics in the brain and throughout the central nervous system to improve different capacities. And this is also the case for neurovisual rehabilitation therapy that we just alluded to. And there has been also some evidence showing that when we're applying the neuroplasticity tenets and principles, and we use this neuromodulation or neurorehabilitation techniques, ranging from medical or non-medical, non-medicinal therapies, that is going to help the cognitive substrates. It's going to really enhance the cognitive capacity and cognitive aptitude of the people. And here's the example for the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And according to the MRI study on 1,713 participants, it was shown that, well, both children and adults who have ADHD, they were found to have smaller volumes of the nucleus accumbens, amygdala, caudate, hippocampus, and putamen, which is also a deep-seated nucleus in the brain. And also they have the overall, decrease in the cortical and intracranial volume. And they have less surface area and the cortical thickness compared to the people without ADHD. But it was shown that after, proper treatment of the ADHD and maintaining a better gain in attention and cognitive aptitude in those cases, there has been a relative increase in those in the volume of those structures. And that just reminds us that what we're talking about as a neuroplasticity concept is reality. It's not about our assumptions. It's about evidence-based medicine, and it's shown to be true both in human and also in animals. Some other examples are the way that we are applying neurotechnology for improvement of the physical and also neurological symptoms of the patients with traumatic brain injury, and also to prevent the process of accelerated aging, also to prevent the incidence of dementia and also aggravation of memory loss and cognitive decline symptoms in patients as they age. So that is also another way of using neurotechnology, using the concept of neuroplasticity to just delay the process of brain aging. And last but not least, when we're learning new languages, the brain is just forming new connectivity meshwork. And by forming this connectomics in the brain, we got to have all the infrastructures. We got to have all the molecular, cellular, chemical, electrical, and magnetic infrastructure well in place to help the nervous system to form those new structures. So there is a theory that when a person wants to learn a new language, well, the intra-network, connectivity is going to get rewired, and then question is, if we're using the neurotechnology, stimulating the brain, and also giving the people some specific formula for the betterment of the brain function that we refer to them as nootropics, or modulating the brain at cortical, subcortical levels using all different neuromodulation technologies that we've just referred to, is that going to help the person to learn that language in a shorter period and with a better aptitude, with a better capacity to learn things? So these are very, very interesting open questions that we're going to tap into as we're moving down the road in our discussions. The following sessions whereby we'll be talking about how we're going to maximize the use of applied neuroscience frontiers in the improvement of the function of the people at personal and societal level. And that is exactly what is going to change the world for better, because when we want to have the better world, we need to have better societies, we need to have better people, and we need to have better brains, right? And that's about it for this time. And I really appreciate your attention. And we're going to catch up next session talking about some further frontiers on how to apply the neurotechnology and the concepts, key concepts in neuroscience, including neuroplasticity and human enhancement and improvement of the disease condition when it comes to the nervous system. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope we'll catch up next session.
Togetherness Media. Togethernessmedia.com